Oh, first hand of the session, pocket aces. Is that for real? Ah, okay. It was too good to be true, right? Too good to be true to get a big pot in the first hand. Well, anyways, bottom latch here, we're defending against min raise. Low board, no spade. We're gonna check here with ace 10. I'll probably bet some lower kickers and some ace x with the spade. Turn here, we turn top pair, top kicker. Villain relatively quickly checks. He's gonna be very capped here when he checks twice on this type of board texture. So we're going to put more money to the pot than we likely should in theory, but with the assumption that this player is unprotected with his checking range. It's a kind of minimally exploitive strategy. A lot of people like to punish cap ranges with over bluffs, and you know, that can be fine. However, a lot of times your opponent is going to have a cap range, but it's going to be filled with bluff catchers, and he's not going to follow those bluff catchers. So it's not like you can auto profit with bluffs. And the main exploit strategy against cap ranges is to simply go thinner for value, bet bigger with your value bets and value bet hands that you wouldn't otherwise, right? So that's the way to punish capped ranges, but at least in a minimally exploitive way. Right, top right we have an double Broadway ace-x texture, or stabbing strategy here. It has to be quite polarized. Solver does like betting pairs with draws, but I don't think it does so 60% of the time with this hand on this texture. So I'm gonna go for the check here, as I would with most of my range on this board texture. Like, you also have to think about, what is it that this guy's checking on this kind of board, right? Like, it's only now that I recognize he's a fish. So I was mostly thinking about a regular. Anyways, it's kind of interesting to think about, what do people check on these boards where they should be c-betting high frequency, right? Or at least that most people c-bet high frequency, because sometimes you're not supposed to bet high frequency on those boards, but most people do, right? So when they don't, like, what does that mean? Does that mean they have an air heavy checking range? Does that mean that they have an overprotected checking range? What does that mean, right? You have to try and figure that out. It's pocket nines here. I'm going to try and play an expert strategy here where I'm going to go for thin value against a regular in this line. So this is a line where historically myself and most people play this line very aggressively with bluffs, because the IP player check back range tends to be weak on these textures. So I'm going to try and anticipate that my perceived range looks weak, and I'm going to apply fucking river. I'm going to apply a thin value bet strategy, expecting him to overcall. Turns out that he found, I guess, the only 5x he's gonna have in that spot. Maybe he has 6-5 suited as well, so it didn't work out this time. But let's keep on going. Quite a lot of hands to play on the session here. We're playing 4 tables, you guys can see, and the action can be quite fast at times. So let's see how that goes for us. Top right, we're gonna c-bet top bottom, and I'm gonna go for the check raise on the turn against recreational player. Recreational players tend to stab a little bit too often, and they also tend to overcall against check raises, especially for big sizes. So I'm gonna go for the check raise here on the turn. And bottom left, we don't lead the fortress straight on the turn, and I'm going to give up. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give up here on the river. I do have some other hands to bluff in this spot, although I think I will have to bluff some missed diamonds there. It's not like you can give up all of my missed diamonds in that spot. So this is something important that a lot of people often think of missed flush draws as like an auto give up hand, and that's not true. Like, you still need to bluff with missed flush draws in a lot of spots. In fact, I've made a recent video to my Cash Made Simple community, which is my community for cash game players. And in one of those videos, I did a little bit of research into how often Solver gives up with missed flush draws, how often he continues barreling a missed flush draw after betting the previous street. And you guys would be surprised at what the answer is. I'm not going to tell you the answer. This is going to be restricted to my students in the Cash Made Simple community, but you would be surprised. You right now, you very likely give up way more with missed flush draws than you actually should, my friend. And this is going to cause you to under bluff quite a lot of spots, and you're probably getting exploited by a population that overfolds. And population correctly recognizes that you're going to be under bluffing, and then they correctly overfold against you. So you should probably improve the execution of bluffs with missed flush draws. Pay attention to that, because you often should bluff with those hands, even though most people don't like bluffing with them. King 7-5 rainbow, gonna see bet at a high frequency. You should probably still have some checks on this board texture. It's not like it's a range bet spot in theory, although most people probably simplify towards that. On the turn, I just have a gut shot. You have to control your frequencies with your gut shots when you have a ton of them, and in this case, we have a decent amount of 8x. We have straight draws with the 6 as well. And then we have a bunch of high cards with a hard blocker, which are going to function very well as bluffs as well. So basically what I'm trying to say here, you have to control your frequencies with your bluffs, otherwise you're going to be massively over bluffing a spot like this. And if you're massively over bluffing, your opponent can exploit you by over calling the turn, and sometimes by over raising the turn, because if you over bluff, then you're going to fold a lot to check raise, and then villain can take some hands that don't have showdown value and that he can't call with, but then he starts to check raise with them because you're folding too much against raise. Alright, so pay a little attention to how you construct your ranges in those spots. It's very easy to over bluff. Right, so I have 7-6 here against villain, min betting this flop. Obviously, we need to raise this bet quite a lot. Ace Jack making a defend here. It's the bottom of the calling range here against a small 4-bet from the small blind. 7-6 here, kind of feels like these bets, yeah, like I was gonna say that, kind of feel like these bets are some kind of bait, you know, because it's obvious that it's not a good sizing for this texture. But people do it anyways, right? So it kind of feels like a bait where he wants you to raise and then he 3-bets. Anyways, it's not going to work out for him this time though, because we've got the nuts and he pots. So we just jam here. But on left, I'm going to block bet again against 2 players, and I'm going to bet call this ace jack here. I would imagine it's correct to do so in theory because of my ace of heart blocker and his small size. And also because this is the board texture that I hit pretty well, right? I'm going to have like 6-5, 7-6. I'm going to have 8-7. So it feels like a spot where in quite a lot of runouts, I'm going to be able to have fold equity. And I'm going to bet now 10% pot here. Oh, fuck. Okay, that was stupid. I meant to bet, of course. And here, obviously, it's a jam. With the ace jack. Just calls with the split, makes sense. Anyways, a lot of people using min raises in the spool. I'd imagine it's just due to the leaderboard. They're basically trying to rake more, I guess, is what's going on. Gonna raise small here with my 9. We're supposed to do some raising here with the 9x in these spots. Gotta mix it up, of course. Can't do it all the time. Shouldn't do it never also. My opponent decides to 3-bet. Probably shouldn't do that all that much because he can't really fast play his 9x too much, given that it severely caps his calling range. So in theory, he should control his frequencies with his 9x, right? It's not like he can do that. At least not in an unexploitable way with this 9x region, right? Now we turn to Foo House. He checks. Like, people play these 3-bets out of emotion quite a lot of the time. Like, they feel like they're getting attacked a little bit, so they just emotionally decide to fight back with the 3-bet. So I think his range is actually probably very air heavy here. And against an air heavy range, what's the point of betting, right? I want him to either catch up or bluff on a later street. So I'll just check here, hoping that he will do something on the river. He bets half pot at this point. Yeah, the only thing we can do is to jam here, right? The only thing we can do is to jam. But on left, we're gonna check some times on King 9-7, or will we? Yeah, it's a kind of board where so easy for him to flip. On the turn, we're going to bet or flush draw. Villain ends up making the fold. What is he trying to wrap here? He surely didn't have a 9, that's for sure, right? So what does he have there? We flop the nuts here on a 4-way pot. There are many recreationals. 2, potentially 3. On the turn, I can't really check raise. Or I can't really. Oh. I think betting is the way to go. We get clicked here from this guy. Super sick spot. Because he does have ace 10, right? I'm just gonna go for a call and then check raise river if his sizing is weak enough. Okay, against the size we just jam. Right. We just jam. King Jack here. Yeah, nice. King Jack, I decide to check the turn here. It's a turn that completes 10-9, completes ace 10, completes king queen, right? So it's double flush draw, so it's not like we can go for stacks on many runouts. So I prefer to check the turn and then reevaluate. He bets relatively small on the turn. Now river completes the diamond draw. Really hard spot for him to be over bluffing. Yeah. Although he is kind of crazy, right? This guy. But can we extrapolate what we saw from the ace 8 to here? What does he bluff with? He did size up flop and then call the check raise. He's got to be turning a jack, potentially even a queen into a bluff, right? With no relevant blockers, I'm going to fold this. I would feel much more comfortable with a flush or a straight blocker here. Without any of those two. Feels like even against a volatile player, kind of forced to fold. The 10-9, we did stack our opponents, so this speaks a little bit about the value of getting more information, right? So I'm not yet sure on the turn if fast playing is the right idea, so I say let's wait for him to give us more information with his river bet sizing, and then we make a decision. And he did give us that information, right? He decided to block bet the river. So this game is a game of information. If you can collect more information and use it to your advantage, you're gonna make more money, right? So I think we decided to behave perfectly here. Pocket kings here, we're going to 4 bet king queen. We're gonna mix it up. Top right here, 3 bets and calls. King queen. I didn't mean to snap check like that. Just display the timing tout right there. It's my opponent. 8 deuce. Yeah, whatever. He squeezes some value out of us. King queen just checking it through. Can we call here? I think people can recognize that ace low low is a board text they have to check a decent amount, and then they might not be super happy about taking a stab on the turn. So I think I'm actually gonna exploitively overcall here. Block kings and queens. Yeah. Feels like a nice spot to exploitively overcall. Just given how they play flops and turns, it probably gets the river with way too much air, and it's just too tempting to take a stab once you get there with air, right? You're gonna check back jack high with no attempts to take down the pot. Feels kind of weak, right? So very easy to overbluff spot. Another aces for us. We get a snap call from the button. It's crazy. That's crazy. What's he doing? Snap call. That's insane. This board is like a half potter check kind of board, right? So I'm gonna play theory oriented here. In a spot where it's kind of tough to define his range. So I'm just gonna go for the triple here. Ace Jack gonna check call the flop against limper. Wow, look at this guy. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should not have raised this guy. Take a look at that. 9/1. I'm even scared to put mine to the pot now. Guys, 9/1? That's insane. The aces, we try to go for stacks. Villain folds. 9/1. That's so crazy. I'm gonna overbluff now. I mean, ah! What is this guy doing, man? 9/1. Ace king. He snap calls the river. Oh my god. Amazing. Amazing stuff. This pool never fails to surprise me, man. Some weirdos out there. The guy's playing 9/1. He limp calls ace king from the button. Oh my god. You can't make this shit up. And now they're aces. That's crazy. We have gotten a lot more aces than we're supposed to in this session. I think it's the 4th time now. Bingo player. Bingo player. I'm gonna fold the 7s. Zero V in theory, and these super tight players, you never know. They might have like 3% 3-bet or something. Queen 10 off, a bunch of tight players behind, some kind of a weird player in the blind. Aces, we get check raised, we're gonna call. Turn, we also call. He has some like 4, 3, 5 deuce, and then of course a bunch of like queen 5, queen 4 type hands. In his check raise range. He goes for the jam here. This spot is not significantly overbluffed nor underbluffed. Ace is a pretty reasonable bluff catcher here that I'm going to call with, sometimes fold sometimes. This is one of the few spots where I think it's fine to RNG your bluff catching strategy, because it is indeed quite close to balance for population. And then if you're up against a more aggressive player, it might be slightly overbluffed. Ace 10 feels like a check on the sport texture. Half pot or check texture for me, and a lot of my high cards are gonna have to check, which means that a lot of my high cards are gonna have to call if he bets. Something important to figure out, like this is something that I like to call range tracking, right? You have to keep track of your own range for you to play correctly, right? So how does your range want to play? And then it's considering how your own range looks like that you can make the appropriate plays, right? We win at showdown this time. 6-5 suited, barreling the turn with the flush draw, get it through. 9-7 suited, Jack 8 deuce support texture. You can play big bet or check. RNG 82. You're supposed to have some checks with your draws, and I like to check maybe 20% of my draws. So it fits perfectly with that RNG. He bets 3/4 pot, and we're supposed to have some raises here. Particularly because we're definitely able to check back some Jack X. But it's also a note that you don't have to play raises if you don't want to. Solver has very little raising in the spot because you have already capped your range by checking back the flop. You don't want to further cap your calling range by fast playing your value, right? So it's kind of a spot that you have to be careful. At least in theory, right? This is all theory talk on my part here. Now easy value bet on the river. Jack 7, nice. Top right, we flop quads against the same player. It's kind of crazy. Not sure about raising or calling. Not sure what to make of people's c-bet range on the sport texture. Probably gets over c-betted and over folded to raise, if I would have to guess. He now decides to 2x spot the turn. It's always nice when you have quads. This card probably freezes action a little bit. Yeah. Kind of disappointing. Disappointing river card. Ace queen off, we're gonna mix 4 bets and calls here. RNG 88, we're gonna go for the call. And flop top 2. Nice. Definitely very nice. This player. So I'm going to call this, check this, bluff this, and call this. Okay. Sixes against type player. 0 EV in theory, probably trending fold. And here just check jam. It's a spot that probably gets under barreled by the river. And therefore I want to fast play my value. What is he tanking with? You either have a calling hand or you don't, my friend. He's got like ace jack. He snaps ace jack, right? I mean, another aces. That's crazy. Another one. Okay, that's starting to scare me. I'm basically getting down all the aces I'm gonna get down for the remaining of the year. What the hell, man? That's insane. And there you go. Once again, a fold. Fucking sucks. Recreational player here. Not ideal that he sizes up. But with the pair, I ain't folding a pair. At least not on the flop. Against a fish. We hit trips on the river. What is the best way to get value out of him? What is the best way to get value? I think this. He still has quite a lot of bluffs in his range, so I basically just want him to do this. Yeah, exactly. So I just want him to do this so that he can What? I did not expect to lose this hand. Oh my god. Crazy. 10-4 here, decides to stab the flop. Like, you gotta do these air stabs sometimes on the flop, because otherwise, like, what do you bluff on draw completing renounce, right? So, stabbing the flop sometimes with those hands is really important. This is something that I call a pillar of GTO strategy, which is to barrel air in some spots to be able to be balanced over future streets, right? If you don't do that, you can't be balanced over future streets. It's really important that you have this theoretical principle in mind when constructing your range. You gotta account for what's gonna happen over the future streets and how you're going to be able to balance your ranges over the future streets, considering that when the draw's complete, you're gonna have quite a lot of value hands, right? You should think about that, you know? Oh, the draw completes. Yeah, you're gonna have quite a lot of value. You want to balance that value with bluff so that you can get paid, right? You want to get paid with your value. So if you don't prepare ahead, if you don't have those future street bluffs into your range that can remain as bluffs, you know, when the draw is complete, then you're going to be under bluff and your opponents are going to be correctly exploitively overfolding against you, and you just lose value, right? So important not to make that mistake. 9-7 here, block betting the turn. This is a really marginal pair that would benefit villain from moving his overcards. And we get another aces in the top left. Oh my god. So good. Let's go to 12. 4-3 suited is a call. 9-7. He checks back. Let's see. He's got Jack 8. Did not fire the river. Aces on ace 10-5. I'm gonna go 10%. 10% on this board texture feels really, really good. Basically, we're trying to put pressure to his region of low pockets, and that size perfectly accomplishes that goal. Turn triple Broadway after you go 10% is typically a very good block bet spot for your range. Get that right out. So stupid. Really, really stupid. I mean, still has... Yeah, it still has worse sets than 2 pairs. And it's not like he can have bluffs if he raises, right? Yeah, so I guess B10 to fold is a really good play here. Seems like a perfectly good play. Of course, kind of sucks not to get the payoff we wanted when we 3-bet aces in flop top set. But it is what it is. We have to play according to the cards we're dealt, right? Ace Jack suited on King 8-6 two-tone. These kinds of King medium boards are gonna be medium frequency c-bet boards. So you gotta control your freaks a little bit. Top right, we have a... it's technically a 2/3 or check kind of board. I'm wondering if there's a better size. Anyways, top left, we have what you can play as a multi-size strategy flop. 3/4 overbet and maybe half pot on this board are all fine. The pocket kings here, I think I'm gonna go for it's kind of close, really. It's really close. Like, in one hand, I think Solver continues betting this hand a decent amount, but I think people overall will take more stabs than they should on the spot. And then once he checks back, his range is mostly capped, and we can take advantage of that by just betting larger with our value. Not that I think this is some form of exploit, because Solver probably plays exactly like that, to be honest. Like, even against a balanced player, I think you should probably jam the river S blade. So it's not like I'm doing any form of exploitation.